So today I'm covering a beautiful game, last round from the Tata Steel, where Carlsen beat Caruana very convincingly, very nicely, and clinched the first place. So let's just go. Today I want to cover. Hi everyone. Hope everyone's playing a lot of chess in these cold winter days. I don't know how it is where you're living, but where I am, it's always snowy, icy, crazy cold. So people are staying inside, all bundled up and cozied up and playing lots of chess and other things. So last round of Tata Steel, if Carlsen won, he'd clinch first place, and he very convincingly did that. Against Caruana, a phenomenally strong player. These have faced each other many, many times in the past. And Carlsen showed his class once again. So e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, Sicilian, bishop b5. This is a quieter line where white is not opening the center like this, which would be open Sicilian, right? But navigating towards more positional lines. So g6, this is all well known, so I'll go quickly. Castle. You always ask yourself if e5 is a good idea, but here there is knight d5, there's also knight g4. Knight g4, the computer suggests d4, and white is doing very well. But knight d5, and like in the c3 Sicilian, black is okay. So e5 not a big deal, therefore Fabiano goes d4. d5 to stop the expansion. If you don't do this, maybe d5 is a threat right now. It could be. And I wonder what happens after a6. This was also possible. Take, and not this way, by the way. Then e5, knight d5, and take. Now we have problems developing this guy a little bit. But compare this with this way. Now here, okay, same position. Even you can go back. But if we were to go here, take, and the bishop at the very least can go out this way, right? So the pawn here went this way, as opposed to this pawn going this way. Typically we capture towards the center, but there's many factors like development of the bishop in this case. But anyway, black is okay in most of these lines. But Carlsen chose d5 here, which is probably best. e5. Now it's like a French, right? Knight e4. But the knight is active on e4, and the bishop isn't hemmed in by this pawn, which is normally on e6 in French lines, right? So it's a good French in a way, but there's some downsides too. Like the knight is that's going to be exchanged. But it's a double-edged game. Bishop e3. Notice white doesn't rush to exchange these pieces because white has more space. So it should be black that's seeking exchanges, not white. So bishop e3, that's correct. Take, queen b6, again in the spirit of the French. Now putting the question on this guy. Queen e2, defending the bishop, developing bishop out, bishop back, rook, take. And now sometimes we can do this, right? But here the bishop would hang, so we can't do that right away. So queen d8, maybe intending knight a5, but there's an even better move. Can you find that? Quick trick, knight takes e5. So if white is asleep on the wheel, take, and if you take this way, I take your bishop, I want a piece, I want a pawn. And if you take this way, I don't take this way, then I'm losing, right? But I take with the knight. Now if you count the material, we're up a pawn. So that's the trick Caruana will, of course, never miss. Bishop back to b3, just from a4, bishop drops back to b3, give me the pawn. Knight a5 as promised, right? Knight's heading for c4. Rook c1, take. Taking is also possible. I wonder how would the game unfold if this were to happen. Computer suggests bishop f4, b5. It's a bit dry, but, you know, black is going this way, this way. That'd be a different game. Instead, Carlsen prefers depriving white of two bishops. Take, take, queen b6. Queen a2 covers the pawn. a5. Maybe white had ideas of pushing, potentially, so stopping that. And queen a3, a very nice crawling move. The queen was passive on a2 here, and now it's a bit more active, hitting this pawn. Now notice how people are, both sides are improving their position slightly, but also making tiny tactical threats to keep the other person on their toes. Rook e8, c4. Well, center is very important in chess, so why not take the center, c4. Take, take. And when I first saw this position, let's take stock for a second. And let's take a sip of our water. What can white do? Now, white could always, in the previous move, well, actually no, next move, not previous move, d5 is an idea. Not sure if it works. Does it do anything? Is it any good? Maybe it's an idea, right? Maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe c5 is an idea. And then you ask yourself, it's difficult to make both the white knight and the white bishop happy at the same time. So imagine 8-6, let's say d5, which is a good move. Queen, let's say queen goes here. Now, white's doing very well, and white can keep pushing, and that's a lot of space. What I was trying to say was maybe this is the best. Now knight can go here. Okay, actually, never mind. Then the pawn hangs, right? Maybe knight can go this way and this way. I'm trying to activate both minor pieces for white. And bishop can go, maybe knight then goes here. But what I was trying to say was the knight and the bishop could sometimes compete for the same squares, namely d4 or even c5 sometimes. So this push, the white pawns are looking very imposing. They command a lot of central space, and they also make the central. They also make the minor pieces quite happy. So this would be desirable, and probably is a positional threat. So Carlsen, the other way to play is c5, of course. Just we're trying to gain more space, right? So because of that, Carlsen goes here. And now d5 doesn't work because the pawn is hanging. Okay. So Fabiano played this way. I was thinking maybe knight d2 was an option. But then b5 is computer suggestion. Okay, c5 makes sense. Bishop c6. Well, all of the light squares are weakened. So the bishop gets here. It's perfect. Even on c6, it's doing absolutely fine. Rook b1. a4. Well, this is a passed pawn, right? It's not immediately powerful, but it soon will be in an ending. Well, it's also a waiting move in a way. Rook c1. I was thinking, and the computer suggests that too, knight should be rerouted. Every move, white has to consider, okay, what happens if he takes? What happens if he takes, right? There's that, and also, the knight really wants to go here to here, or if allowed, even here. And then, who knows, maybe here. Maybe this is the ideal square for the knight. It doesn't feel optimal on f3 where it is right now. So that comes to mind. Rook c1 was a bit mysterious to me, to be clear. Rook's not doing much, right? Maybe Fabi is preparing this idea, but it was better to start with the knight move, as the computer recommends. A tiny inaccuracy, maybe, and Carlsen activates his rook on the d-line. Knight d2 finally happens, but it's a bit mistimed because of this one. And now if knight c4, what would we do? What would we do? Why is this mistimed? Well, what's a move that creates a threat for black? These guys are kind of passive, but these are active, right? So how about something like this? They connect on g2, threatening mate, and there's no good, believe it or not, there's no good way to defend. For example, here, this is disaster. After queen f3, you get obliterated down the light squares. And if there's nothing else, you can't play d5 and f3, you would just take, at the very least, it's a pawn. It's much more than that positionally. So this knight move doesn't work. Okay. What can we do instead? f3. And this is smart, look, you could say, right? Now white's intending knight c4 with an excellent game. He's one move away from achieving everything he wants, right? He optimized the pawns. Rooks are looking good, especially this one. Well, they're good. Knight's ready to jump in. Queen is good. But Carlsen strikes here in this position. In the nick of time, he finds the blow. So if I were to tell you, calculate, right? What would you do here? I want to tell you something, like how to think about a complex position like this. Where do you start, right? There's a lot of moves to look at. When you try to understand how the flow can continue, you can ask yourself, what can be improved, right? So pawns are frozen. There's no pawn breaks. f6 sounds a bit, well, it sounds a bit too good to be true, right? Okay, you attack the center, but yeah, okay, maybe it's an idea. Maybe it's a pawn break, but weakens the king down this diagonal. That's a lot of arrows, I realize. Okay, maybe f6 is a move. Bishop is bad, but it can't be optimized in any way. Doesn't really have any moves. So f6 kind of makes sense for that reason. This bishop is already excellent. Rooks are looking not so good, but there's not much to do. I mean, for this one. For this one, maybe there's something to do, right? And queen's already great too. So hopefully this helps you, right? I think the only two moves I'm looking at is f6 and rook takes d4, which was played. So the line starts bishop d4, queen d2, and then you can start to assess the position. So you should do that if you haven't done it already. But f6, why is f6 not working? Right? Maybe it was working. If white just proceeds with knight c4, what happens? If we take? Do we take with the d-pawn? Probably. No, computer, this one doesn't work because of rook d3, obviously. Okay, now we achieved our goals. Okay, now I see. This I'd missed in my analysis, but rook b2, right? f6 is a good idea. I'm happy I came up with this. It's a common French idea, right? But the problem is queen's trapped, right? There's nowhere to go. So good idea, but execution doesn't quite work. And of course, this is not enough compensation, not even close. Okay, if f6 doesn't work, then, I mean, there's nothing else to do. It is rook d4. Good or bad, you have to play it. And actually, black is a little bit better, according to the engine. Here, but the bishops are so strong. This bishop was limited by the pawn, and now this becomes a target. This bishop's a monster, despite this blocker. The rook now knows where to play. The queen is very active. I think the situation is just like flowing for black. And whereas white doesn't quite know what to do, right? He played this way. I'll go quicker towards the end. E6 was stopping any kind of white's E6 breaks ideas. Here and ending. Okay, but the problem is this one's hanging. Maybe the last question was rook takes b4, but then bishop f8, maybe bishop d4, rook d8, and everything is tied up, right? Maybe the king can join, king f2, but then we take. So then the choice becomes, do I give up this one or this one? And Fabi gave up the e pawn. Sorry, here. It's very difficult, no matter what you do. And I'll go quickly because Carlsen is a true master of the ending. F6 happens as we said, but it's very different in this situation. And now basically the e pawn just runs. Here, rook f5. So in general, when you have a pair of rooks or knights, you want to exchange one off, usually. So here, an idea that I'm thinking about is rook f2, but doesn't quite help white. This doesn't, I mean, it's fine, but it doesn't do anything, right? E4 is a easy way to continue. Pawns are really advanced. This pawn, even though this is a desirable exchange for white, in principle, black's still winning. Doesn't g3 to stop the pawns, but then the king will go up, right? Support the pawns. This will probably fall. It's overwhelming. So there's not much Fabi can do. He played rook b1, e4, advanced. Passed pawns should be advanced, always. Just push them, baby, as Sarah one likes to say. Check, weakening. This is nice, right? It's a GM finesse, right? He could just play bishop g5 to tickle this guy right here, but first the check, weaken the structure, and then bishop g5. Tiny transactions. Rook f3, bishop c1. Let's keep the two bishops. Rook b6, white's not able to do anything. King always joins. Rook f3, very nice. Take. Now this pawn is going. Boom, 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 boom. King f1, bishop d4, and white resigned. You can see what's going to happen. White will be crushed because of f2 and some bishop check somewhere. Let's try to play h3, f2, I don't know, g4, bishop e4. And now I'm going to give a check on here. You can't stop it, right? I don't know, rook d6, check, and queen. Beautiful game by Magnus. He showed his class once again, both tactically and then positionally, and then a beautiful finish of the ending. Hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, please subscribe. Peace.